On today's story, you're going to hear really two main, themes of this story that's being told. One, you're going to hear of a man who has been inspired by one thing, like that he went to at one point in time, and he started it back in his own city. And now it's changing people's lives. The other thing is a message that he wanted to get through to people who want to protect the environment, to inspire them like he was inspired to start this thing that he's starting that we're going to talk about today. We're going to be talking to Craig Perlmutter from Toronto, who started Arcadia Earth in Toronto. It is an art meets ocean meets environmental protection sort of place that you can go to become inspired through different and really creative art pieces around that message. And not only can you be inspired by that, but you're inspired so much that they have like a marketplace where they've partnered with all these other, sustainable companies for you to buy the stuff, which I think is really great. And we're going to talk about that on today's episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. Let's start the show. Hey everybody, welcome back to another exciting episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Loon, and this is the podcast where you find out what's happening with the ocean, how you can speak up for the ocean, what you can do to live for a better ocean by taking action. And on today's episode, we have Craig Perlmutter from Arcadia Earth. He has started Arcadia Earth in Toronto after visiting a pop-up Arcadia Earth in New York City, and he was like, you know what? I love this so much. I want to do one in Toronto for my city, which, to be honest, I live just outside. I grew up in Toronto. I live just outside of Toronto, and I am so happy that it's there. I can't wait to visit it. It just opened up in January, so it's just at its 6-month mark. Congratulations to Craig and his team for doing some remarkable things now and in the near and long future ahead. Now, this episode's all about doing things, and that's what I'm here to do for you. I'm here to bring you that information, and I am in the midst of creating an ocean community app. This app is for you, is for anybody who's on Facebook, anybody who's on Instagram, TikTok, any social media site, watches my videos on YouTube. I'm going to bring you all into one app. So the reason why I'm doing this is so that you don't get fuddled around with algorithms from social media sites where you may lose my stuff because maybe you haven't liked it or maybe you haven't seen it in a while or engaged with it for a while. You can get it just from tapping on the app on your phone and watching and learning and listening to the latest information on the oceans and how you can protect it. All you have to do is go to the website speakupforblue.com/ocean app. There's a sign up. You put in your email. It's free. I don't share any of the emails. It's just for you and I. I'm going to put up updates for you just on how the app is going, give you some mock-ups, what it looks like, what it's going to look like, talk about what I'm excited for, talk about new features I'm going to be using. It's going to be great. You'll still get the podcast on the podcast apps. You'll still get the YouTube videos on the YouTube videos or on YouTube. You'll be able to get all the content on TikTok, Instagram, but I'm putting it all in one, so you don't have to go searching for it, and you can just get it right in the app. So that's speakupforblue.com/ocean app to sign up. I want to see how many people I can get on that first day, that second day, that third day of opening up the app in mid-July. So check that out. I'll be putting up video updates. So check it out, speakupforblue.com/ocean app. Now, I want you to listen to this story and get inspired yourself. Here is Craig Perlmutter of Arcadia Earth. We are going to talk all things Arcadia Earth and how it came to be and what it's going to do to the city of Toronto. Enjoy the interview, and I will talk to you after. Hey, Craig, welcome to the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. Are you ready to talk about Arcadia Earth?
Hi, always excited to talk about Arcadia Earth and excited to meet you and talk about yourself as well.
Wonderful. This is super exciting for me because, Craig, this has been a long time coming for this podcast. We have a common friend, Amanda Horn, who's put us together to say, hey, Andrew, you have to watch, or you have to have Craig on your podcast. You got to talk about Arcadia Earth. It's this immersive sort of art meets technology meets environment immersion type of I guess walkthrough, or like it's just it's really hard to describe. You're going to help me describe it, but
I'll take a
it's
shot. I'll
really
take a good shot at it.
it's really amazing to see what you've been able to do in downtown Toronto, in the city that I grew up with, the city I'm 45 minutes away from now. I'm very excited to talk about this. But before we get to all that exciting stuff, why don't you just let us know who you are and what you do?
Anyway, it's great to be able to talk about Arcadia Earth with you. My Arcadia Earth story actually dates back to February of 2020, just over 4 years ago. My friend in New York invited me, one of my friends invited me to go see the Leafs play the Rangers, and
Oh yeah,
who's not going to make that quick
absolutely.
24, 22-hour trip?
Yeah.
And quite randomly that afternoon, I walked through this immersive exhibit called Arcadia Earth, and it was a different version of what we have here in Toronto, but it was one that certainly caught my attention pretty quickly. And I fell immediately for the art, and I fell for the technology, and then more importantly, I fell for the mission behind it.
Mhm.
And I had my own aha moment that we're trying to provide people here now in downtown Toronto. I was in a room called the Rainbow Cave, and it was filled with recycled plastic bags. If you can imagine, thousands and thousands of plastic bags all around a room. The room was maybe 500 square feet, so a pretty small room with a bunch of
Mhm.
people in it. And it's in an art installation filled with some cool colors and some little sounds, and it just I wasn't suffocating because it was all plastic. It just had a cool feeling to it.
Right.
And then there's this voice out of the top corner saying, "Welcome to the Rainbow Cave." And you're standing among 44,000 recycled plastic bags, the number of bags used in the state of New York every minute. I was like,
Oof.
did I hear that right? Like, so that
Wow.
really caught my attention. That was in one of the first few rooms. So I was like, I tuned in a little bit more than like thinking about, holy crap, I'm going to go see the Leafs play tonight. But so I've got this iPad. They hand me an iPad. I'm using the augmented reality really for the first time, and a really cool app, and scanning things around the space and listening and learning, and without knowing that I'm learning, and just having fun. And I literally walked away from that experience. Um, Out of the last room, and I saw my friend there. I was like, I need to find out more about this place. Like,
Yeah.
what did I just spend an hour doing that it felt like it was 5 minutes? And I learned so many different neat things about different species, different topics, and things that we can do to help protect and save the planet. And I wasn't even expecting it, right? Um, so I had the conversation that day, and literally COVID hit a couple minutes later.
Of
And
course.
maybe I even had it that day. No. And so this is February 2020. A few months later, I picked the conversation up again with the team there. And we figured out that Toronto would be an incredible next city for Arcadia Earth. And the one in New York was built as a more of a temporary pop-up 6 month
Right.
version of it. It ended up being open for just over 3 years, 3.5 years.
Wow.
And so the conversation started, and we started building a different type of business plan for Toronto to build a more permanent version that where we can change the rooms a little bit easier than they were going to have to
Mhm.
change the rooms in New York. And maybe every year, year and a half, 2 years, we change the rooms, change the topics, change whether it's the physical art or the projection mapping, some of the augmented reality. There's so many cool parts to it. And I started looking around downtown Toronto, saw a bunch of neat places, but nothing really caught my eye and caught my attention like the Well. And we're really lucky to be in the Well, which is a new development down at Front and Spadina, right in downtown
Oh
Toronto.
wow. Yeah.
And on June 1st, we're gonna hit our 6 month mark. So we open on December 1st after a
Wow.
year and a half of designing and building and
Yeah.
tons of learning. And we've had a great run of 6 months already, and it went by most days it feels like it went by in a flash. We've had an incredible number of visitors and groups and school groups and corporate
Yeah.
events, and we book launch, some really fun events with businesses that are like-minded and have obviously ESG at the tip of their tongue as much as they can, and we're trying to force that issue a little bit too. So, but I'm happy to give you tons more information and walk through the rooms. I mean, I could go on forever and ever about Arcadia Earth and the fact that I've obviously learned a little bit more about what you're doing, and I'm learning along the way, just like all of our visitors, and just like all the visitors
Right.
that visited New York. I'm not a professional environmentalist. I've tried not. I mentioned this in another interview that I'm not an activist. I was like, well, you kind of are because you're the one giving people the information and
Yeah.
sharing it and trying to inspire people. It's like, okay, fine, that's fine. I can handle that. But I'm learning along the way just as much. Like my family's behaviors changed from that day forward in a number of different ways. And the great part about what I loved about New York and a part that I think is really important with what we brought to Toronto is it's not our approach is not like doomsday like and overly preachy. And yes,
Right.
we talk about one of our incredible projection mapping rooms is all about single-use plastic and what it
Right.
does to our bodies and the environment, etc.
Yeah.
And it's not, telling people that they're the devil if they use a plastic water bottle. But the fact is, we could all use 90% less. Maybe not 100% less, because once in a while there may be the time that you need to use this or use that. But if we thought about this way more often as consumers, as just not just our buying behavior, but even when it's free. Like you don't need to
Yeah.
take a plastic water bottle, X brand water bottle, just because it's there and because you're thirsty. You can have your own, well, you can have your own water bottle. I didn't carry around a water bottle as much as I do now until 4.5
Right.
years ago. And it's this is some, and that's one of the topics and one of the more simple topics of what we're trying to impart on people, inspire people. Look at the things that we're doing. Look what's in the ocean. Look at the incredible species in the ocean that we're harming in some ways.
Yeah.
And here are some simple things that you can do to make a difference. And again, that's one of the topics that we're covering all of our different
Yeah.
rooms. But it's endless, and it's nice to be able to be part of inspiring people, and giving them these tangible, simple lifestyle changes from everyday purchases and just things that people are doing every single day and that they can fix and do better.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah,
I love the energy you come with, with bringing this. I love the fact that you didn't know a lot of this stuff beforehand, and then once you found out, you're like, I got to act, not just individually and then from your family perspective, but also like I got to tell the world. Like I got to
right,
tell
right,
people in Toronto. I got to make sure that people get the same response that you did to say, hey, like we need to do something about this. Like this
right,
is mind-boggling to be
right,
surrounded by 44,000 pieces of plastic, recycled plastic paper bags. Like, holy
right.
cow, like that in a
Crazy,
small room
crazy.
too, right? Which is
Yeah,
insane. But I have to say, like, what's insane is to say you go from seeing this and you're like, I got to start this in Toronto. Now, that wasn't overnight. That wasn't just in the moment, was it? Like, was that something like, I got to bring Arcadia Earth somehow to Toronto? Or did you like digest that a little bit more?
yes, there was definitely some digesting and some decision making. But I was pretty all in pretty quickly in my discussions with the team in New York, and I learned a lot from the team that was helping operate the New York version of the exhibit. They had a pop-up version of it in Las Vegas that I sort of had my hands in watching how they were building
Gotcha.
and opening a little bit. Vegas is a completely different zone than being in Toronto in so many different ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love Toronto, I love Canada, and I really felt like the messaging in particular would resonate with Canadians and with visitors to Canada. And we're
Hmm.
just getting into the biggest tour season, obviously for Toronto, for Ontario, for Canada in the summer, and we hope to be able to inspire people from around the world now that they're going to be in Toronto and come be downtown. And I'm sure they're going to visit, our friends at the CN Tower and hopefully Ripley's. And we want to be a stop on the way downtown and inspire and look, we want to bring people in because it's entertaining and fun and exciting, and there's
Yeah.
great technology and really cool large scale art installations made with all recycled materials in a really neat, creative way. And that's our mission, and we're sticking to it. And but yes, it was a it was a crazy turn. It was
Yeah.
a
What were you
crazy
doing
turn.
before? What were you doing before that?
Yeah, so just before New York, my wife and I had just finished our about 20-year career owning and operating an overnight summer camp in Algonquin Park. So we were very,
Oh,
very
okay.
into education, and into kids, and into
Yeah.
the environment, and
Right.
living in nature and outdoors and all that stuff. So there were a lot of very similar buckets, and the hospitality side and creative side, and
Yeah.
maybe there's a lot more technology at Arcadia Earth than we had up in summer camp in Algonquin Park. But other than that,
Yeah.
there were a lot of similarities, and it has been, a huge goal of ours is to get as many kids through the experience as possible. We have an extremely low ticket price for our school groups, students to come
Hmm.
through in school groups. We just want that message. It's such an important generation, obviously, to inspire and excite them about different species on the planet and just different things that they can learn. And it's been really a great new field trip for kids to dig into over the last couple months. And we're just rolling out, hopefully soon, a new educational program that'll come out in the fall for school groups and for teachers. And teachers have just loved it. It's a new
Of course.
we check a lot of boxes. We check the
Yeah.
technology box for kids because they love using their phone or an iPad that we lend them. They love being outside of school, like who doesn't?
Yeah.
And they have fun with it, and they really have fun with it. And there's so
I
many
love
cool
that.
topics that teachers can take home
Oh
with
yeah.
them. There's a whole website that has of ours that has information about each of the rooms and tons more information about each room. So it's look, you can spend an hour or even longer walking through the exhibit, and built in with a back end of an augmented reality experience that people use on their phones. And that really brings each room that has the experience in it has brings each room to life. And
I love it. I think it's amazing, and even going back to the plastic display that you have, and the messaging around that. You know, growing up in Toronto, you don't see that message often, or I haven't seen that within the city limits.
right,
And even so, like some of our leaders, recent leaders, we had a mayor who was infamous for drug use, and he was kind of interesting. But we also have a premier, both of them, like the mayor, they're both brothers, of course, the Ford brothers, but he took away the 5 cent to pay for a plastic bag to sort of discourage people from buying a plastic bag. Took that away because he's like, I don't want to pay 5 cents for a plastic bag. If I want a plastic bag, I want a plastic bag. Completely ignoring the problem of
yeah,
why we did it in the first place. Completely ignoring the plastic pollution epidemic that we are going through, not only in the ocean but in the Great Lakes as well, like right
for
in our
sure,
backyard. And I
absolutely.
feel that conversation doesn't necessarily happen a lot in Toronto. Maybe it's my circles, maybe not. I don't see it in the media a lot. You see, reusable, like the Yetis and the Stanley cups, and things like that, but you still don't see that conversation, that awareness happening. And I feel like a place such as Arcadia Earth can really, as it did to you, could really spark that moment, that aha moment, being like, oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
this is a lot of plastic in one place.
And
Like
I think
this is crazy.
there are a lot of people I'm finding, and my one of my greatest joys, and I take a lot of pride of standing at the exit of the exhibit before they walk into our marketplace area and saying, "Hey, how'd it go? Like, what'd you learn? What was your favorite room?" Like, I love
Hmm.
hearing people's feedback.
Yeah.
And I'm noticing that I think people, it's not that people don't care. I think there's a lot of people that just don't know, right? Like they need to
100%.
know a little bit more in a simple fashion. They need to be, you get banged over the head with these aha moments, and then there's a little spark like I had in that room with the plastic bags. Like they learn something. They if people walk out with one or two tidbits of information and one or two tangible actions that they can take back to their home or back to their school or back to their workplace or just in their
Hmm.
obviously in their own lives also, there's a big difference to be made. And yes, corporations have to have their play their part. The government has to play their part.
Right.
We can try and educate, inspire both of those sectors in government and big
Hmm.
business as much as we can. And I think there are even businesses that have come, have events, and have groups and lunches and things at Arcadia Earth over the last 6 months, and they learn and they have pledged, in so many words, to make certain changes, and they come in, they want to have bring a lunch, and it's like you're not bringing in plastic water bottles. It's like, oh, we didn't even think of that. It's like, well,
Right.
now just because the 100 people that came for lunch, they couldn't have plastic water bottles, they're probably not going to do that anywhere else either from now on. So
Right.
even that's like a neat change for them. So
Just makes them think
anyway,
about it too. Even if
makes
they're
them think
allowed to
about it.
bring it in somewhere else, it's like, am I allowed to bring plastic water bottles in this place because I wasn't allowed to bring it at Arcadia Earth? Like, it makes them think a little bit more. It's like, why are you drinking this? Do I really need to
Right,
drink that?
right, right.
I always find it interesting how we live in beside one of the Great Lakes, like Ontario,
Hmm.
and people are using plastic water bottles, and I'm like, we probably have one of the best water systems in the world. We are near one of the biggest freshwater lakes, reserves in the world, and we should be able to drink it, and we are able to
And we
drink it.
can.
There's and
We're
we
look.
can.
We're also lucky to be able to drink it.
Yeah.
Even if you want to have additional, some complain about the city's water filtration. So you can have more filtration in your own house, in your fridge. We're lucky to have
Exactly.
those luxuries, but the main luxury of just being able to have clean water coming out of our tap,
Yeah.
we don't need it bottled. We just don't.
True.
You don't need it. You don't need it.
It's
And yes,
true.
once in a while there may be the time but it's rare. It should be rare. It should be rare.
Yeah.
Again, not overly doomsday like, not overly preachy, but we can all do better. And that's something that again, my family and I took away from that one visit 4 years ago, whether it's
Yeah.
eating a little less meat, less takeout containers. Oh, should we do takeout tonight? No, we have, whether it's by car or walk, we can go somewhere and eat instead. If we're not going to cook something at home, let's just
Right.
go walk somewhere. We don't need to have takeout as much. Not that we're
Yeah.
never going to have takeout. Everyone would like the luxury of
For sure.
takeout, but
For sure.
for millions of people to think that way a couple times a week, oh my God, that's a big change. That's a big difference. That's a
Yeah,
big
and one thing
difference.
I've noticed actually, even with takeout containers from a lot of the restaurants, because of the single-use plastic bill that went through the government a couple of years ago, I'm starting to see more sustainable options for
Yeah,
packaging, like for
yeah,
takeout containers. It's not
absolutely.
styrofoam anymore; it's cardboard, and it's recyclable, and I
Yeah,
think it's a much better way at this point that I know. Who knows, they've hoodwinked us before with
yeah,
recycling.
yeah,
We'll
yeah,
have
yeah.
to see, but we're starting to see that. But because we got pressure from individuals to pressure the government to say, hey, we don't want single-use plastic in our system, we don't want it in our country,
Right,
let's reduce it. They put a
right,
bill together, that bill gets put together, and then a bunch of legislation gets put together
right.
that helps
Yeah,
that. And I think,
there are some great options,
yeah.
that are gaining steam right now. Like even if you buy, um, if you get takeout on Uber Eats, there's now an option for sustainable packaging. You
Oh,
add,
nice.
like, I don't know if it's 50 or 75 cents per dish, and you get a metal container. There's a company called
Oh,
Supply, Suppli, I think.
okay.
Met with their owner 2 months ago. Lovely lady, so smart. And
Yeah.
she's trying to make a difference herself with this incredible business where you spend 75 extra cents on whatever that dish is, or three or four dishes. You get this container. There are drop boxes around. There are places to take it. And then, and that's it. And it gets
And they pick it up and they bring
reused.
it back.
They get it picked up. We may become a depot for
Yeah.
supply soon, which would be really cool, especially among the community of the well and all the buildings and people around. But anyway, it's just there's so many smart people out there that would like to make a difference. And there's some incredible entrepreneurs that I've been able to meet that we highlight a lot of their products in our little marketplace area. And we have
Yeah.
a sustainable marketplace area. It's not like this major revenue generator in any way, shape, or form, but it's an extension of the mission that we have, an extension of telling stories. And each of our rooms tells a big story, and then
Yep.
the products that we have in the sustainable marketplace tell the story of why that entrepreneur wanted to create a more sustainable, green, healthier, friendlier product, and whether it's like Heritage Bee and Birch Babe and there's so many, it's almost too many to mention. They've a lot of them have just dropped their careers and started these incredible new companies to make a difference, and they're really down to earth, friendly people, really who care about the environment, and that's those are the people we want to be friends with, and we want to highlight their journeys and their missions as much as we can help. If we can help a little bit, then we love it.
Absolutely. And
Mm.
just to let people know that you can go on the website and just hit the marketplace link, and it has all the different brands that you have in the
It
marketplace.
has a
Is that
few of them
correct?
listed. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's more
Yeah.
being added almost on a daily basis, but yeah, yeah,
Now that's an interesting thing. So you have your mission and your messaging coming through the pieces, the art pieces that people will walk through and immerse themselves in. And then they come out being like, oh my gosh, like there's a lot of awareness that goes on. So people are like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, what do I do here? What do I do after this? Like I've got all this awareness, there's probably a little bit of anxiety, being like, oh my gosh, the world is in a crazy place.
yeah,
How do I figure things out? Then they walk through this marketplace and be like, well, first, just know about these brands. You can buy one and try them out and see what they're like. Cause I think the biggest thing, Craig, for me, and when I try and look for sustainable brands, it's very difficult to find them. And a lot of them are smaller. So it's slightly more expensive than what your regular brands
right.
are that you would get in your grocery store and like say a Walmart or for Tino's or whatever that might, like a
Yeah,
Loblaw store.
sure, sure.
But these ones are like they're usually a lot of them are Canadian owned, a lot of them are or locally owned, and they have the same mission that you have. They probably went through a very similar process where you're just like, okay, we need to do something, and they started a business. So a lot of them are smaller businesses. Would that be fair to say?
You could run our marketplace knowing what you know already. So no, absolutely. Look, they're all literally. I would say that they are almost all Canadian, very small businesses. Some are growing rapidly already, which
Nice.
is super exciting. A few are just. I know Birch Babe just launched in Sobeys suddenly, and we were like one of their first stores they were in 6 months ago.
That's
So they're
awesome.
growing slowly but surely. Look, this is an incredible mother and two daughter team that literally dropped their lives and started this incredible brand. And anyway, but yes, there are a number of them, and from recycled material, sorry, dog toys made with recycled
Right.
materials to bags made from knapsacks made from recycled plastic. And I mean, there's just people have been very innovative with solutions and innovative with
Yeah.
recycling materials, reusing materials. There's a really neat clothing brand called Nudnik, who started a clothing brand years ago, and they just use remnants. Recycled clothing and remnants that came off of factory floors, basically, and they make really cool, fun kids'
Yeah.
clothing mostly right now. So again, it's endless how many there are, and we're continuously adding brands to our mix, and just telling more stories more than anything. So,
So how do you find these brand partners?
well, it started with a lot of Googling. It
Okay.
did. Look, I mean
Yeah,
that we
yeah.
got to start somewhere. So I have a few great connections that knew some people that had recently started some really neat brands, and over the last 6, 7 months, particularly the last 6 months since we've been open, people are finding us, and we get marketplace inquiries all the time, or people walk in and see what we have. It's like, oh my God, I have an aunt's cousin's brother's sister who has a thing that they make really cool coasters out of
Yeah.
recycled plastic bottles. It's like, oh my God, you got to connect them with with our marketplace manager. That sounds really cool. So
Yeah, that's cool.
it's nonstop. It's nonstop,
Yeah,
which is exciting, and that area has definitely grown over the last few months and continues to change and evolve, which we're super excited about.
I love that. Now let's get back into, because I
Yeah,
want to talk a little. I don't want to give it away for
sure, sure,
like what people are going to see, but can you talk about some of the installations that you have,
sure.
and just kind of give a little bit of a description so we can give a little teaser for
Yeah,
the people
okay.
who are
So
local
let
and
me.
people who are visiting Toronto.
Yeah, look, I'm asked all the time, what's your favorite room? Because I ask people, it's like I don't have an answer for that. Like I shouldn't have an answer, but anyway, um,
Right.
a couple of highlights for people for sure. So about a year and a half ago, on our plans, we had an empty room. So we decided to put a call out to Canadian artists and say, okay, here's a shape of a room. Um, Pick your topic under the environmental sustainability world and your medium, whether you want technology or physical art or what anything. The
Yeah.
open blank canvas. And so we had about 25 or 26 submissions, and one of them was by this incredible Canadian environmental artist named Benjamin Von Wong. And we were really lucky that he submitted a proposal, and it was all about electronic waste and the right to repair and how dependent we've become on technology and that you don't
Oh, I
need to get the
love that.
new iPhone every time the new one comes out,
Yeah.
and what to do with your electronics when you're done with it, and recycling and reuse it. So he created, and I mean, seeing it on paper was one thing, but see it
Yeah.
come to life right in front of my very eyes, like I was like a kid in a candy store when 4 or 5 thousand pounds of electronic waste in these big buckets showed up on our site. I was like, Benjamin, you are crazy. But anyway, so again, seeing it on paper was one. So he built this incredible throne with really cool LED lights. It looks like you're Dr. Evil on the throne in the middle of Tron in the Game of Thrones, everything mushed
Yeah.
together in a
Yeah.
graveyard of old computers and monitors and toasters and old stuff. And there are thousands of mice and computer mice, not mice, computer
Right.
mice and keyboards and motherboards all throughout this really cool backdrop experience. It's called the e-waste generator. And he had, I don't know, 15 or so volunteers, and his mom and dad were there, and they're just putting pieces together and creating this vision that he had, and it's a huge highlight for people.
I can
Huge highlight. And
imagine.
there's an augmented reality trigger in the room where this person comes off the wall, asking questions to each of the visitors of your dependency on electronics, as I mentioned, and asking them little questions about what's important about recycling or reusing or using less. And so people learn obviously a little bit about it in
For
the room,
sure.
but that's a big highlight for sure with people. We have a really special partnership with WWF Canada.
Yeah.
We worked with them for a good part of a year, maybe even a year and a half, to put another room together. This is the second of our projection mapping rooms where people walk in and there's a huge scene about the forest, and then there's a huge Arctic scene. So each of those has a little
Oh.
video introduction, and then there are there are projections on two of the walls and the floor, and those projections are interactive. So there are sensors in the room also, so it knows where you're standing, what you're touching. You can touch the walls and things change. There are circles that come up on the floor, and there's a positive side and a negative side to the room. So when you touch on a circle, there's some information that comes up on the floor, and then there's a change on the floor or the wall depending on what topic you've hit on. If you're in the forest talking about reforestation, on the negative side, trees come down and you see it come down, and the logging truck appears on the wall. And on the other side, trees appear if you step on the right circle and gives you information about planting and reforestation and restoring. And so there's just a different type of interactivity in that room that is very unlike any other room that we have. It's towards
Yeah.
the end, and that kind of helps. It's very different. Like every room is very different, and people can spend a lot more than just the 7 or 8 minutes it takes to get through the forest and the Arctic. They just go sit on the floor and just take it in, and
Yeah.
kids of all ages are walking around watching themselves. The fish are following them in the Arctic scene, and I don't know, it gets me going all the time when I'm thinking about it. And I walk through there, and I think I touch the wall every time I walk through that. Every time I
Yeah.
walk through that room, I touch the wall. People probably think I'm crazy at work there, but it's just like it's fun. It's just
Well,
fun,
that's
and there's a
it.
lot to learn, but it's also fun. Like,
When it sounds, I mean, it sounds like also, it sounds like it's going to be a different experience every time, depending on where you touch and what you go for,
right,
right? And I
right,
think
right.
that's what the beauty about it is not only do you get to immerse yourself in different art pieces, but you can in different rooms, but you can also probably stay in the same room, go there twice, and then probably have a very different experience than what you
Yeah.
went in the
Once in a
first
while, we
time.
see people walking back the other way. It's like, where are you going? It's like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
go back to the e-waste room again and sit on the throne. And anyway, it's
Yeah.
yeah. And the same with the other projection mapping room. That's all about single-use plastics itself. Like, and it's not an interactive projection mapping. It's just a big. It's kind of their introduction to projection mapping, and then the next one has the interactivity. But people just go sit up against the mirrors on the sides and hang out there. It's only a 3.5, 4 minute video, but people will go
Yeah.
soak it up and experience it once or twice, and just take it in, and hopefully they'll learn a few things and love the colors
Yeah.
and the sounds and
That's awesome. For the World
yeah.
Wildlife Fund exhibit,
Hmm.
it's a conservation organization. This sounds very, obviously there's a message there, right, which is the
Yeah,
precipice of the whole exhibit.
of
But it
course.
sounds very creative for a bunch of conservationists and scientists. Did
Funny you
they
should say that.
work with
Yeah.
somebody to get that done?
So they worked with us. So they
Okay.
have a 10-year mission called Regenerate Canada. And in our initial
Okay.
conversation with them was this is what we want to. I mean, they work on a lot of different things,
Of
WWF
course.
Canada. It's an
Yeah.
incredible organization, super smart people. Megan Leslie's in charge of WWF Canada, and
Yeah, she's amazing.
she's super smart. She has a great team that works with her. And so they wanted to focus on Regenerate Canada. So we took that back to one of our creative teams that we were working with on that room and started to develop ideas and say, okay, what if we did something with forest and Arctic? There was maybe going to be a third scene, and we get people to interact, and they decide whether the room is going to be more positive or more negative. So the scenery around them changes with where they're interacting, and it was super creative and smart. I would have,
Yeah.
look, again, I'm learning along the way and trying to be creative with that team, but they're the technology geniuses, and they figured out a way for this to truly interact. And Regenerate Canada's video has this really cool, they talk about this yellow line, and we can't cross this yellow line.
Mm.
And so they put this a big yellow line that goes right down the middle of the room before the interactive scene for both of them. And I mean, there's just so much to it, that you're right. The WWF Canada team, they weren't going to do the creative part of it, but
Right.
they're the smart people that told us what we needed to include to make sure the room makes sense, right? So,
Yeah.
but the team that we work with on the creative side to develop the whole thing, they did an amazing, amazing job for
That
sure, and we're
sounds like
proud.
it.
And I know, WWF Canada, they were super excited when that room launched at the right when we opened, and they had a great event there a little bit after we opened, and for them to be able
Nice.
to show off to all their major donors, like it was a big thing for them,
Yeah.
and we're proud that we donate $2 for every individual ticket sold back to WWF Canada. So we've raised over $100,000 for them already, and so it's been a great partnership. But again, they do a lot of great work. They have their fingers in a lot of different places,
Yeah.
but to be able to focus on Regenerate Canada and work so closely with their conservation team, and they're super smart people.
I have to ask you
Yeah,
this question because I think this is something that it's to me all the time. Like when I
yeah.
first see something, something proposed to me or something it gives me, I literally, I'm like, that can't be done. Like that's a cool idea, but it just can't be done. You've seen some pretty far out sort of proposals, especially like even just the machine one, the electronic waste one that you just mentioned.
Hmm.
And you were even seeing like, oh my gosh, like how, like, did you ever just be like, no way, like there's no way you could get that done, like that's impossible, and then they do it and you're just like, oh wow, like you were able to do that. Do you ever have that kind of moment?
I probably have had about 100 of them throughout this whole project, to be honest. Like, oh my God, is this thing really going to happen? Is it really going to happen? Like,
Yeah.
it's been a wild and crazy ride leading up to, December 1st. And November 30th was our launch party with press and media and partners and whatnot. And literally, we had our final inspection 2 days earlier. Like
Oh
it was
wow.
like
Yeah.
everything was
It's been
up to the
moving
wire,
fast.
moving
Yeah.
fast, and with architects and design and GC and electricians. I mean, it's endless what happened to get open. But I had a great team around me for sure, and continue to have a great team now on the more the operational side, of marketing side, and all of that. And it's anyway, it's lucky to be open. It was a huge endeavor, there's no doubt.
Oh, for
There were a
sure.
lot of bumps along the way, as every
Yeah.
entrepreneur has. And to do this and still have a strong purpose behind it, it's difficult. It's tough. It's
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah.
It was very difficult, and at times is still very difficult. But it's certainly been worthwhile, and very proud of what's built down there. And I look around, and there's so many things I want to change still, and it's going to continuously improve and be better, and we'll do better, and we'll be better. Towards the environment, I think,
Yeah.
as a society, hopefully because of it, and a community, and that's the hope for sure.
I love it. Now,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
you continually ask, and you stand at the end where people come out, and
Hmm.
you see their faces, you see how they're doing, and what are do people ask you questions about sort of the messaging? Like, do they ask, like, what kind of questions are they asking, or how are they feeling when they come out?
There's a lot of questions about how did you guys put all this together? Like that's
Right.
like
Yeah.
people are shocked about that for sure. I think there's some that walk through and have those same aha moments that I had. Some come out very emotional. I had a potential marketplace partner come visit from Montreal. The two of them walked through the exhibit. We talked about what the product that they're bringing to the marketplace, which is it's going to be there in a week or two. It's this big, really cool machine I can talk to you about. But anyway, they walked through and she like came out crying. Like we sat
Wow.
down on the couch in the
Wow.
marketplace after, and I was like, okay, let's talk about, bringing your special product to the marketplace. And she's like, we'll do anything to be part of this. Like, we just need to be part of your messaging. She was literally like she couldn't speak. So the
Yeah.
fact that we can get that type of I mean, there's a range of emotions, but to
Of
get that
course.
kind of emotion out of people, makes makes it all worthwhile. But a lot of the questions are around some of the facts, and is this really true? Is this really true? And so I mean, constantly fact checking. We had a great team that helped us put all the content together, and really help Canadianize some of the content that we borrowed from whether the New York exhibit or the Las Vegas exhibit. There are little pieces of that in Toronto, which we were able to very mission oriented
Yeah.
recycle some of that information, and also some of the materials and some of the art from those exhibits. But people are like I said, like they just don't know. Like some people,
Yeah.
not because they're not smart. Like these are very smart people that don't realize certain things. And if you can kind of throw those little aha moments at them, it really really makes a difference. And these are 4, 5, 6, 7-year-olds that come up with great questions. We've had seniors groups coming through
Oh,
that
that's
have
awesome.
incredible questions, and anyway, it's a fun experience watching all kinds just walk through the exhibit
Yeah.
and walk around with either an iPad and our explorers. We have people that are our team are spaced out around the exhibit, up almost one per room, and they're
Yeah.
helping explain the exhibit or introduce them to the room and make sure that they hit the right triggers and the technology is working, because technology is our best friend most days, and sometimes it's a couple of minutes a day it's our enemy. So making sure that those are all working, and making sure that they walk out of the room knowing, making sure they didn't miss anything, right? So
Yeah.
that's really key. That's really really key. So
I love it. I love the idea. I love how you built it. Like, you're just like, nope, this has got to come to Toronto. I want to thank you for bringing it to Toronto, because I think this is something that is is going to help people. And it really puts them in the place of like, surrounds them essentially with the
Yeah.
message that they need, not only from a visual and audio perspective, but just from an inside, like the emotions that they feel, as you mentioned before. I think that's absolutely amazing. I remember, we're doing this over Oceans Week, and so that's obviously an important part of the messaging. I'm looking on the website and I see, manta rays, and I see, as you mentioned, you have a plastic pollution exhibit and so forth. And these are the things that really people need to be aware of,
Right.
and,
Yeah, we've
and
connected with Amanda a couple months ago that you mentioned
yeah,
before, and she's an incredible woman. She has
unbelievable.
she excuse me, she has um, a great awareness about the world, about the planet, about the ocean, and we're super excited to be one of Ocean Week's Toronto hubs for COLC, the Coalition of Ocean Literacy. Sorry, the Canadian Ocean Literacy Coalition,
Yeah,
and we're excited to have activations in our space the first week of June, and she just again, I'm learning like so many other
hmm,
people and learning more about Oceanwise and MSC and sustainable fishing practices. We have a whole room about sustainable fishing, and there's still more information that we could put into that room. Having met with MSC and talked and worked with
oh yeah,
Oceanwise as partners for our Earth Month challenge, and anyway, but their ambassadors are going to be on site starting on Saturday, on June
love it.
1st for the week of Ocean Week. So again,
I
and
love
you're
it.
right, most of a lot, just thinking about our different rooms, um, you know, the ocean and water touches almost every room of ours. It just does.
I like
it does.
that.
It's almost
I like
every
that.
room. It's not just us made up of 85,
Yeah.
90% water. It's
Yeah.
it's so important, and it's a part
Yeah.
of the environment that probably needs the most attention, and maybe that's why
Yeah.
it's affected in just about every one of our rooms, and there are more rooms to come, and a new set of rooms will probably get rolled out over the next 6, 12, 18 months, and there's so many other
Nice.
topics to cover.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there'll be more about the ocean. We do have um, one of our rooms was not ready when we launched, and it is minutes away from being launched. So
Yes.
it's
Love
this
it.
really incredible LED tunnel that people have been walking through with this thing off, and they love
Yeah.
it. I mean,
Yeah.
now I'm
Wait till
seeing
it
it.
goes on.
Now it's plugged in, and the
Yeah.
content is being finalized, but there's an incredible ocean scene. Then there's a lakes and rivers scene and a forest scene that just highlights three or four different species in each of those sceneries, and has little bits of information of threats and solutions for those species, the Canadian species. Um, and it's going to be really an awesome experience. And that'll I don't know if it's going to be ready this week, but it's hopefully
Yeah.
days away, maybe a week away from being launched
It'd be
officially,
great.
and we're gonna hit the presses with it for sure because
I love it.
it's been a huge work in progress, and it's gonna be a highlight for sure.
I love it. Craig,
Yeah, yeah.
this has been amazing. I want to thank you so much for coming on the podcast
Thanks
and
for the
telling us
interest.
about
Thanks
that.
for I mean,
Yeah.
you ask incredible questions. I could talk to you all night, so you probably have somewhere to go, but
No,
anyway,
no, not at
I
all. Not at
appreciate
all.
it.
Like we'll chat after
Great.
this, but this has been like it really. I can't tell you how thankful I am for this being in Toronto,
I appreciate
because
that.
I was really happy when the aquarium came, and I'm very happy that Arcadia Earth has come to Toronto, and it's like a permanent thing, and that people can like you're hitting messaging now that hasn't been touched upon to most Torontonians and a lot of Canadians uh, that I've seen. And so I'm really happy that you had the gumption to just be like, we're going to do this, and we're going to make this the best possible experience and the most sustainable experience that people can take. And I really truly appreciate from the bottom of my heart that this is in my city, in our city, and to just be like, hey, this is great. And to be honest, I think it's great that your story started off with a hockey game. It's
Start
just
with
a
a hockey game.
typical Canadian
Yeah.
story, right?
Isn't it classic? It's classic.
Did the Leafs win?
No, we got killed.
Oh man.
early on
Okay.
too. It was
Well,
like, oh,
typical
it was over
Canadian,
in the first period. Like I was like, oh
typical
my God.
Torontonian story then, right?
Yeah,
Typical Leaf
went right back to talking about Arcadia Earth by the second period. It's fine. It's fine. It's fine.
But
Anyway, I appreciate your interest too,
absolutely.
so thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and come, I invite you back onto the podcast. I'm sure we'll have more to discuss and more exhibits to discuss as you keep rolling them out. And
Amazing.
yeah, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, Craig, for joining me on today's episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. Will be, I think, the last episode for Oceans Week, but don't worry, every day is Oceans Week and every day is Oceans Day here on the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. If you want to find out what's happening in the ocean, how you can speak up for the ocean, and how you can live for a better ocean by taking action, follow the show, subscribe, and of course, if you want more information in the future, I want you to sign up for our Ocean app, speakupforblue.com/Ocean app. If you're ever in the Toronto area or you live in Toronto, I highly recommend you go to Arcadia Earth. I'll be going there shortly. I can't wait to go. Hopefully I can meet up with Craig when he's there because he's there all the time. And if maybe we can do a meetup there sometimes for everybody in the area of the Toronto area, the GTA, near where I live. So anyway, that would be a lot of fun. We can get inspired together. We can see what it's all about. And I think that would be great. But again, thank you so much, Craig, for joining us. And thank you for just being here this week, listening to the episodes, listening to the ocean, wanting to protect the ocean. I think that's a really important thing. Sometimes it takes us a little bit to get inspired. Other times it's just you're here because we need to. We are in the hottest, another hot year. May was one of the hottest months on record. And it's blowing out of the water 2023 and the rest. And it's really, really scary. So we need to do something about not only climate change because it affects the ocean, but we need to just protect the ocean in general from the consequences of climate change. So there's a lot of work ahead of us. We all need to get inspired. If you need Arcadia Earth to get you inspired or just to keep you inspired, head on over there in the GTA area. We'll put the link to the website, which is amazing as well. And you can check it out there and you can check out the location and all that wonderful stuff. If you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me, but go to the speakupforblue.com/Ocean app to sign up for the updates on what I'm going to do with the app. Check that out. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the How to Protect the Ocean podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Loon. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next time, and happy conservation.